Good morning, everyone. My name is Luca Dorisi. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Mega. We are a leading software provider for enterprise architecture based in France, in Paris, with offices in 10 countries and customers really all around. Today, I'd like to talk about the future of enterprise architecture, a federating force for business transformation. I find it very impressive today how fast the pace of change is accelerating. Consider the change in working habits, the acceleration in cloud migration resulting from it. Consider employee turnover that is at record highs. Consider the change in consumer behaviors. Companies are hugely affected by this change. Some stay on top, of course, a lot of tech companies, for instance. Some have more difficulties, but all in all, the three main characteristics of those companies who succeed are that they're agile, meaning that they can adapt to change quickly. They are lean, they can adapt efficiently, but they're also resilient, meaning that they can absorb shocks and avoid operational risk. So the future-proof enterprise is the one that is able to plan and adapt to change. So I'm seeing the chat on this at the same time. In an efficient way. And that's really one of the key roles of enterprise architects. But transformation, it's not automatic and it doesn't work in silos. Let me take an example to start illustrating this point. Transformation is more than a technical update. I'd like to focus first on this example I came across on publictechnology.net about the National Health Service in the UK. The NHS started about 10 years ago, 2011, a transformation program focused on digitizing patient records. A few years later, 2016, the Watcher says that the program is failing due to a belief that it was merely a technical update. A few years later, further, the National Audit Office says that the program failed due to the fact that it considered technology only instead of focusing on how people use the technology, on customer needs, on the business. If you take a little more distance, this is also what the largest consultancies will say about why transformation projects fail. If you listen to McKinsey, you'll hear that 70% of transformation projects fail due to incomplete information. So it's a lack of visibility. If you listen to Price, then it's about placing the customer at the center of the transformation project. So it's customer orientation, it's about the business. It's not just a technical update. And then if you listen to Deloitte, it's about the strategic alignment. Companies who succeed in transformation have a clear strategy and alignment around that strategy. So if I take those points, I fully agree, of course, and transformation doesn't work in silos. Transformation requires a connected view, visibility on your operations, a customer orientation, and strategic alignment between the various departments. If you take a change in the operating model, for instance, such as strategic transformation program, digitizing processes, going from on-site to digital, that will involve new technologies. New technologies is not just a technical update. It impacts the business, but it also involves new data. And with all the data that there is to manage, then there's also new compliance regulations to be compliant with. It brings new risks. Transformation doesn't work in silos. It requires a connected view that is business-oriented and requires cohesion between the different departments. So to be a bit more concrete, I'd like to mention 3 use cases that enterprise architects are regularly involved in when it comes to managing transformation. An easy one is the shift to the cloud. Shift to the cloud that accelerated a lot with remote working recently. The shift to the cloud, if you listen to AWS, to Amazon, with the 6R strategy, the first step in moving to the cloud is, of course, to understand what you have. It's about understanding which applications and technologies you're currently using. And then there's going to be several paths. Are you going to move to SaaS, to private cloud, to public cloud, to rehost, to refactor, to eliminate your application? That's not just a technical update like the example we saw before. This is a business change, because moving to the SaaS is not just migrating technologies to Azure or AWS. It's about understanding, well, first, the dependencies and the impacts between those various systems. But then it's about the customer journey. When you move your applications to the SaaS or to the cloud or else, it's going to involve a new experience with the user. You may change the software that you're using. So it's a new experience, and then there's of course going to be new regulations. So again, the migration to the cloud, it's not a technical shift, it's a business shift. Digitizing processes, just another example. We saw the NHS earlier. When you digitize processes, so a few examples, you shift from paper to digital, you digitize patient records, you move from physical banking to online banking. It's about the business strategy, it's about the operating model. Of course, it's about technology, but how technology impacts the customer. And then, yeah, it's about selecting the right strategy, the right technology. And last example, introducing new products. You may include introducing a new CRM, a new ERP, a new business application. Well, it's not just about the product itself. Again, it's about the dependencies with the others. It's about how it impacts the business capabilities, the customer journey, then defining the right software requirements, the right data requirements, and then you can, once you understand those impacts and dependencies, focus on the right products. So in all those cases, the common feature is that they're connected. They require a connected approach between departments. It's not just a technical update, and they're business oriented. In the end, that makes a clarification, I think, between two concepts, the concept of rationalization and the concept of transformation. Rationalization maybe is a first step. It's like governing what you have. It's IT focused. You say, okay, I need to, like many of our customers start doing actually, let's start by doing the IT inventory to understand what they have, also following the Amazon best practices to shift to the cloud. Make your IT inventory, then put it in boxes like on the image, organize it, put it in the right boxes, evaluate each application, eliminate the ones you don't need. That's a rationalization effort. You're saving costs. It can be done without the full transformation project. The transformation is different. Transformation is not rationalization. Transformation comes from the business. It's aligned with the customer journey. It's aligned with business capabilities, which you need to assess in order to then make a plan and execute on the plan in a connected manner. And that's where architects play a greater role and where I see the role of architects evolving towards. What I've seen in the last years is that architects come from a rather IT background with KPIs focused on saving costs. Even some consultancies build their EA services by in a function of the cost savings that they provided to the customer, whereas the role of architecture today is broader than that. It's connected towards business transformation, and it federates various departments around the business transformation goals. And in the end, this is the key, at least, departments and functions that I see EA able to federate most efficiently. So yes, it starts with the business. When you start a transformation project, it's about understanding the business architecture, which goals and capabilities you have in place, and the processes in order to see how you want to remodel those processes and transform. A first connection is done between the business architecture and the portfolio management, so the IT landscape. This is where you're going to make sure that the transformation of your IT matches your business requirements, that you have a strategic plan in place on your IT investments, that your applications are assessed in a way that you can transform your IT landscape in line with business requirements. But then you can also make a link between EA and solution architecture. So you have all those agile projects within the organization that by definition are agile. So they like to work independently. But EA brings not a policing device. EA brings the system of records, the best practices and the guidance and the company rules that agile projects can quickly pick from in order to accelerate the whole documentation phase and discovery phase, and then follow the company guidance and best practices. And then you may continue and talk about risk and compliance. We see a lot of synergies today between the work of enterprise architects and the work of risk professionals. When enterprise architects or process analysts describe their processes to re-engineer processes, well, the next step just after that is identifying the risk and controls associated with the new processes. And that leads directly into operational risk, internal control, internal audits, but also at the IT level. Once you have your IT inventory up to date, then there's just a step to do IT compliance on top of EA. So with several customers today, what I see is portfolio managers getting closer to the CISO so that the first has the up-to-date inventory of applications and technologies, and the second is able to assess compliance, sometimes even using some content from the United Compliance Frameworks from California that provide all the regulatory information that applies to applications in order to make the assessment. And last but not least, very trendy these days is the synergy between enterprise architecture and data governance. In many companies, the two have lunch together because they're so close, and sometimes, like at Société Générale, another of our customers, they may even merge one day. When you talk about information technology, you talk about information. So if architects manage the technology, chief data officers, they manage the data, but they have the same goal, which is to get the most value out of the data, understand how it connects to the technology so that you can bring the most value out of it to the business. So EAs have a federating role in that sense. They align towards the business objectives. They make these different components consistent because they share now the same information, applications, technology, agile project, risk management, and are aligned towards the business goals. In that sense, they federate who? They federate portfolio managers, solution architects, business analysts, risk and compliance officers, chief data officers. And then at a secondary level, they also federate network managers, developers, data architects, and more. I'd like to illustrate this federated view of EA with an example that is one of our customers. It's actually Airbus, has been a customer of ours for over 20 years. And they have started a program a few years back called DDMS, which is basically led by enterprise architecture for transformation. And it really illustrates this federating force of EA for business transformation. So let me dive into it. DDMS program means digital design, manufacturing, and services. It's the program that is basically building the digital airplane of tomorrow. It's a 7-year program that has a digital-first approach to build a digital plane. And architects are involved because they design the end-to-end process to architect the organization that will allow to make this airplane efficiently. Their goal with architecture is to federate multiple departments to reduce time to market and share the same information aligned on business goals. Technically, what they are building is a 360 degrees vision around business transformation, where IT, business, data, and risk are connected. They connected already over 10 departments on the program, including, of course, enterprise architects, portfolio managers, security officers, process owners, and more. And to get a little more in the practical details, that's how they proceed. They start with the business view, which is typically described by the business capabilities, the what you want to do, and then the how it's done. And this is the application systems and the processes. On the application side, they use a service-oriented approach, SOA. The service-oriented approach is super useful for them because it allows to focus not on the system itself, but on the service that it provides to the organization. And that allows to make better efficiencies, to change systems when it's required, and to focus on the service delivered by the system for better rationalization and transformation. And then when it comes to the processes that implement the capabilities and are supported by the applications, they use the BPMN notation. And then they're able to connect the capabilities, the risks, the applications to the processes, understand the data flows, and focus, therefore, on the data itself. In fact, data is a big part of the program because when you federate those functions in order to design the end-to-end process of tomorrow, you need to understand the data that is being manipulated by the processes and by the applications. So what they did first is the architectural approach to data management, designing the conceptual view that talks to the business, which concepts and attributes are needed by each process in each application. They went down to the logical view describing the data model inside the applications, and all the way down to the database structure, the tables and columns. But now they're even thinking about going one step further and connecting with the chief data officers. So shifting from an architectural approach to data management to a data governance approach to the same. And then that creates a new collaboration. And this is not just focused on Airbus. This is a trend that I'm seeing in many places today. A new collaboration is being created where enterprise architects are not just a federating force for business and IT and risk, but also for data. Data is everywhere. It's involved in your processes, it's involved in your applications, and it needs to be centralized because it is confusing when you have data in so many puddles, split over systems, over departments, over business units, without a central view of the data that allows you to make sense of the data. And that is the role today of the chief data officer. In the past, maybe 10 years back, I saw architects doing part of that. Today, the role has shifted to chief data officers. Their mission is to manage the knowledge and build an organization to promote the value of data and that data literacy. So their role is to take all those data puddles, make them into a data lake and a data ocean even, where the data is finally centralized, the data is understandable, accessible, and you can make value out of it for the business. So why should they work together? Well, on the other side, the enterprise architects, they know the business. Enterprise architects, they know the ecosystem because they connect so much. They know your applications, they know your technologies, they know your business capabilities, your processes. Because of the use cases they manage with cloud migration, process digitization, application rationalization, and more. And when they work together, they can bring a few synergies that federate those efforts toward business transformation. Let me give you 3 examples of such synergies that we've seen today. And the first one is maybe the most important, how to build a business glossary that can be easily reused by the business and by the various systems. The data governance approach is mainly bottom up, in the sense that it's based on the discovery of the metadata inside the databases, or those structured databases, or those unstructured databases like the MariaDB, the MongoDB, for instance. It's based on discovery. So you're going to run some agents and discover the structure of your data in those databases. You're going to retrieve a big data catalog with a lot of concepts and attributes from that discovery. And that's going to be complex because you're going to have similar names, you're going to have false positives, you're going to have a lot of confusion. It's hard to classify and understand that data. So building a business glossary that is usable to extract value for the business, it's going to take a lot of time. It will eventually work, but it will take years to discover that data and make sense of it. And that's where the enterprise architects bring a lot of value, because enterprise architects, they are the most knowledgeable on the business and on the ecosystem of the organization. So when they work with data governance officers who have the bottom-up approach, they bring the top-down approach on top. They will bring information on the concepts, on the business knowledge, on the business capabilities, and together they can now categorize those concepts, classify the data, link it to business capabilities, and make sense of it to shorten by a lot and reduce the complexity of building the business glossary. That is something that we've seen at several customers already, and I see a big trend here for the coming years when it comes to the federating role of enterprise architects. Two more examples. The one at Airbus, again, when it comes to data lineage and data consistency. This is what they call the electrical wiring exercise. You have two types of data lineages. You have the technical data lineage between the databases, and you have the functional data lineage between the processes and the applications. On the second one, architects bring a lot of value because they have the business knowledge and the application knowledge. So you can now get the full grasp of how the data flows between your new applications or new processes, identify the golden sources of data, perform that lineage, and then assess the quality. Because if you're basing some reports on the end data that has been transformed upstream by 10 or 15 processes or applications, you need to make sure that those transformations make sense and that the data in the end is clean. So electrical wiring exercise for data lineage, and that again is one of the synergies. And the last one is more on the business process side. Knowing your business processes is also key to making sense of the data, because when you absorb all this data from the databases, like I said before, it's a mass of information. It's terabytes of information on data, and knowing your processes and mapping the data flows between your operations allows you to understand if your data in a certain message flow is connected to a specific business segment, to a specific operation, then it's going to be a lot faster for you to categorize that data and make sense of it. So data categorization, and that's really where enterprise architects bring a lot of value when it comes to data in a federating way. So eventually, if we refocus on Airbus for that one slide, the DDMS program aims at increasing profitability by 30% over 7 years by connecting and federating the various departments on the business change to build the digital plane of tomorrow, with some extra benefits on operational performance, customer satisfaction, as you can manage the customer journey much better, and they also say environmental performance, which is one of their KPIs. So in the end, I think that this success story with Airbus really illustrates the concept of the future of enterprise architecture, with a lot of synergies and roles that I see there in advance even of other customers that are getting there, going from the rationalization exercise that is more IT focused to a transformation exercise that involves the whole organization. And then that starts with understanding the operating model, the technologies, the data, compliance and risks involved in transformation. Hear me well. I'm not saying that you need to do all that at once, because that's the recipe for failure. Successful enterprise architecture is outcome driven. You need to understand what is the first use case that you can focus on to succeed and bring actual value to the organization in an objective and recognizable way, so that you can then expand and build such a program. Happy to talk more about this. And to conclude, maybe a word on who we are. Mega is a connected EA software. We have 2,000 customers plus around the world. We're full SaaS, of course, years of experience and leaders in many quadrants. Gartner, Forrester, Quadrant Solutions, Customer Choice also. Very proud to say that, and thank you to our customers who rated us there. And what we build and sell is software for connected enterprise architecture, including business process, enterprise architecture, data governance, you have understood that, and risk management. If you want to reach out, feel free. I'll do my best to answer quickly. That's my email, and that's the website of the company. So thank you very much.